allegedly froze to death in Texas is suing power companies for $100 million. The 11-year-old died on Tuesday at his family's mobile home. He was sharing a bed with his younger brother at the time, apparently under several blankets, desperately trying to stay warm. That home had reportedly been without power for days. Investigators are still looking into the cause of death, but the family lawsuit says the boy died of hypothermia.
Despite having knowledge of the dire weather forecast for at least a week in advance, and the knowledge that the system was not prepared for more than a decade, Electric Reliability Council of Texas and Entergy failed to take any preemptive action that could have averted the crisis, and were wholly unprepared to deal with the crisis at hand.
It's a sad tale, but even those who do have access to heat and power in the area are asking now serious questions of the power providers.
I'm pretty much paid $9 a kilowatt for electricity, but I was very conservative with my electricity, so I have no idea exactly why this bill is so much, but it's steadily going up. I absolutely cannot afford it. I'm not exactly sure, who can. It's gotten to the point where some people have totally turned off their power because they can't afford it. Enough is enough. They just can't afford it. It's a basic necessity for living. Basic utilities should not cost thousands.
Meantime, more than 4 million power outages have been reported as that storm peaked, and there's been an estimated $18 billion worth of damage across the region. 15 million people have reported disruption with their water supply too. More than 70 have died across the US from the unusually cold conditions, and the governor of Texas now pledging them to bring those spiraling energy bills we've been hearing about under control.
We are moving quickly to alleviate this problem, and will continue to work collaboratively throughout this week on solutions to help Texas families and ensure they do not get stuck with skyrocketing energy bills.
The politicians are also stepping in to help too. Case in point, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee delivering pizza and water to residents in Houston. Akila Scott Amos again says ordinary people shouldn't be picking up the tab for the failures of government and power companies to prepare for such disasters.
Of course, this is a natural disaster for Texas because they don't have the infrastructure and they're not ready and prepared for this type of thing. But again, why should the working class or the middle class have to pay for that? This needs to be deregulated because the government needs to step in. There is no way this should be monopolized so that they can charge whatever it is that they want to everyone. As far as the infrastructure and preparing, they've had time, they've known. They chose not to invest in it, and so this is what happens. It's the perfect storm.
Frozen trees out in Louisiana. That's crazy. I want to say prayers go out to my Oklahoma sister, Miss Douglas. This is the only thing I could really find on Louisiana. She out there in Louisiana, and they without water too. It ain't just Texas. There's other places that's here too. And I want to send prayers out there to my sister. You know what I'm saying? If you get it to help, if y'all can hit her cash out, that'd be much obliged. I'm gonna try to look all that up, and when I get it all, I'll put it under the video. You know what I'm saying? If you want to help out, she's out there. They ain't got no water, and it's crazy. I'm out here in Oklahoma. We doing kind of bad, man, but it is getting better. But out there in Texas, they still doing bad as well. So like I said, if you know somebody in Louisiana, somebody in Texas, hit their cash app to help them out, man. On me. But let me let y'all know what's going on down in Louisiana. But the crazy thing is this ice looks crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's real ice. Nobody thinks it's real ice. We need to start looking at this like they attacking the American people. This ain't no natural disaster. This is a attack against the American people, and we're not looking at it the way we're supposed to look at it.
Hey, Katie, we are in downtown Hammond where the temperatures have actually been falling throughout the afternoon. If you take a look, you'll see that there is still a layer of ice here on the ground from the frozen precipitation overnight. If you look down the street, you can see that some of the cars on the street still have a layer of ice on it from this morning. Right now, the temperature is hovering around 25 degrees. Roads are slick. Sections of the I-55 north of here are closed. And local leaders say tonight would be a great night to just stay home. Icicles hung from tree limbs and street signs in Tangipahoa Parish. There was some accumulation of ice and sleet on the roads and in people's yards. While there was a faint presence of snow flurries in the air, there was no mistaking the Arctic blast that left the region bitter cold.
It's been terrible. I can feel the cold inside my house.
James Bates says when he went to get in his car this morning in Hammond, it was covered in ice.
The front was just as bad as this right here. So I took my credit cards and I tried to get it off like that.
Beverly Covington says they aren't used to this kind of weather in Tangipahoa.
I think the temperature's starting to drop now. You can feel the wind blowing and see a few little ice things in the air. So, yeah, I mean, 16 degrees in the morning is going to be fun.
The icy weather closed sections of I-55 from Laplace to Ponchatoula and Independence to the Mississippi state line. Tangipahoa President Robbie Miller said the farther north you get in the parish, the worse it gets. He says he learned firsthand the dangers of falling trees in this kind of weather.
When we were driving on Highway 51, we probably came within about 100 yards of a tree falling on us. We were driving down the road and saw it fall and across the road. So those things can happen, and that's where people need to be very cautious as they drive.
And that is certainly good advice, and we can now report that I-55 from Laplace to Ponchatoula has reopened. It opened around 4 o'clock this afternoon, but the stretch of I-55 from Arcola, which is just north of Amite, to the Mississippi state line remains closed tonight. And we should also report that there have been scattered power outages here in Tangipahoa throughout the day. We're live in Hammond, Paul Murphy, Eyewitness News.
So yeah, if you know somebody out
back on for most Texas residents, but the winter blast has now left millions with unprecedented storm damage. Massive electricity bills, broken water pipes, and flooding is expected to cause huge insurance claims and could leave many in financial turmoil. Janet Shamlian has more from Houston.
I thought, oh God, not again. I can't do this again.
Tabitha Charlton was playing cards with her twin daughters last week when she heard a pipe burst.
My ceiling just caved in their bedroom. I don't know what to do.
There was just water shooting out of the ceiling, just shooting down on everything.
Now the song and dance with her insurance company, a process she's all too familiar with. Charlton's home also flooded during 2017's Hurricane Harvey. Those claims settled just 12 days ago.
When this happened, I walked out my front door and I fell to my knees and I sobbed. Dealing with the insurance company is a nightmare. It is a nightmare. I can deal with the damage. That could be fixed. But another 3.5-year battle with the insurance company, I don't have it in me.
The price tag for this storm could surpass Harvey's $19 billion in insurance losses. The problem many Texans are now facing, getting estimates for their damage. And there's no standardization across insurance policies. The Texas Department of Insurance suggests filing your claims as soon as possible, taking photos of damage, and waiting to make permanent repairs until speaking with the insurance company. Otherwise, they may not pay.
How do you put a price tag on what I've spent and my time?
As for Charlton, she says she agreed to receive less than half of the more than $300,000 she's spent in Harvey repairs, and she still hasn't received a check.
I was so close. And now it's all over again.
You won't leave?
I don't know what I'm going to do. I honestly don't. We just want our home to be our home and not have to walk through the house. And every time we see something, it's a reminder of years of grief and trauma and fighting.
Tabitha Charlton's house is unlivable for the second time in 3.5 years. She and her twin daughters are staying with a neighbor, at least for now. Now, in terms of President Biden's disaster declaration for Texas, or at least 77 counties in Texas, that will free up some funding, and it will be grants intended for home repair and temporary housing. But Anne-Marie, the problem is at this point, homeowners don't know how much they can expect to get. Meanwhile, they are counting the losses. It's a very challenging situation, especially in communities that have suffered from Harvey.
Yeah, you know, you're talking about Harvey. I was watching your story and having flashbacks of Superstorm Sandy, where a lot of homeowners, fought for years with insurance companies. And, insurance companies would say, well, this damage is caused by wind and you're not covered for wind. Or this is caused by flooding and you don't have flood insurance. And it was just a constant battle for many. The Insurance Council of Texas is asking residents to be patient. But, your story shows just how long it can take to get any sort of resolution. How are people responding?
So the flip side of the Insurance Council saying be patient is Tabitha Charlton, because what she says is that these insurance companies want to wear you down. They keep you on the hook for so long. Year 1 passes, year 2 passes, and at this point, you just want to get some cash flow going. She says she spent $300,000 in repairs, and she settled 12 days ago. Just a few days before this winter storm, she settled for about half of what she spent. So be patient, Anne Marie, kind of can cut both ways.
Exactly, because, it's not just the financial toll. I think more than anything, it's sort of the emotional toll. It's just so grinding. You want your home to be a place of peace. And, when you go back and it's still a disaster zone day after day, you just want to get it done. Give me a sort of snapshot of where things are, where you are right now, because we see kind of all these, different stories, lots of video, but what's happening?
Well, let me give you a little more perspective about what you said. I think it's a very important
This was 43 minutes ago.
point, and that is the emotional toll. So Tabitha has 7-year-old twin daughters. They don't want to go back to the house. I mean, that is your sanctuary, right? And they are frightened, so they don't want to go back to the house. But in terms of what's happening here in Houston, which is, where I live and have lived for many years, I think it's a little bit of shell shock what's going on here. The grocery store shelves are still largely empty. I will say most people have power now, and most people have water, if not full-strength water. And Houston lifted its boil water order last night. So while that all sounds good, I think that we are kind of just emerging from this fog that was the winter storm of last weekend.
Oh man. I mean, it looks great where you are. I just feel for the people of Texas. Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The city don't have power. I don't have running water in my house. There's a growing number of people in Houston. I think it was maybe a third of people, but now I think it's starting to grow. And even in small towns around Texas, like Baytown and Port Arthur, they've shut the water off completely so that their water system does not get destroyed right now. Texas does not have the infrastructure to deal with something like this. It was never anticipated. And so that's why you have so many people with freezing pipes, because the majority of people in Houston do not have insulated pipes because there was necessarily not a need. Let's talk energy. Let's talk about this 56% of people in Houston that don't have energy right now. It's because Texas is the only state in the United States, in the 48 continental United States, that isn't connected to the federal supply of energy. Why is that? Because Texas broke away from it, privatized it, monetized it for their own purposes, and now the residents in Texas are suffering. People in Houston, people in Baytown, Conroe, Willis, people in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and all these little small towns in between. I don't know if the news is really talking about this on the national level, but people are dying here. They just asked for a refrigerated truck in Galveston County to help store bodies, because they have more than 20 bodies that they need to store right now. People are dying from carbon monoxide in their homes right now. I can't even tell you how many thousands of people in Houston are choosing to they have no choice. They're sleeping in their cars outside to try to keep them and their families warm. People is in their house with multiple hoodies and coats and stuff. And keep in mind, this is Houston, Texas. So a lot of these people with coats, they don't have North Face. They don't have Columbia jackets. They don't have insulated coats. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to let everybody know about what's really going on.
Put a little bit of emotions.